Hey there, I am back with another deck review, and today we're going to be looking at the Lord of the Rings from Theory11 and designer Kevin Cantrell. Lord of the Rings is without doubt the seminal work of fantasy literature, with almost every fantasy novel in modern times drawing something from the Tolkien classic. In 2001, the first movie of the Peter Jackson directed trilogy was released, and it was amazing, one of my favorite movies to this day. It was the movie adaptation that Theory11 acquired as their latest license, partnering with Kevin Cantrell to make a deck inspired by the epic movies. In my opinion, Cantrell was the perfect choice too. His highly detailed art style and super intricate line work are really an ideal fit for the theme. As a fan of both Lord of the Rings and Kevin Cantrell, I am beyond excited to check this one out, and have been since the moment Theory11 first teased the deck. Now, just a caveat before I get into it, I am a fan of Lord of the Rings, but between the depth of the lore and some of the tough pronunciation, even in a longer review, and trust me, this is going to be a little bit of a longer review, I'm bound to miss some stuff. So let me know down in the comments if I get something wrong, or you just want to add something that you catch within the deck, because there is a ton to pour over. But all that said, let's get into the lore. All right, so starting off with the tuck box. This is made by Close Street Press, and tuck boxes are really a hallmark of Theory11 decks. They always do an amazing job offering incredible luxury for the price, and this one, no exception. Done on a black matte cardstock, but it's almost entirely covered with gold foil and embossing, and then accents of this bright green foil. It's an impressive look to it overall, and really has that luxury feel to it. The scene on the front starts out with the gate to the mines of Moria. You may remember that part from the movie, and it even has over the top of the gate that famous riddle, "Speak, friend, and enter," as well as at the bottom the answer to that riddle, Melon, the Elvish word for friend. And so as you peer through the gates and into the mines, you also catch a glimpse of one of the most famous scenes from the first movie, that image of Gandalf and "You shall not pass" as he stands in the way of the gigantic Balrog Durin's Bane. And you remember this scene is the one where he holds off the Balrog so that the rest of the Fellowship is able to escape. Beautiful scene, and really evocative of, one of the best scenes from that first movie. And then it's surrounded by all this fantastic gold detail. And as you look through the gold, you can make out some of the different characters. You've got characters like Gollum over here, Saruman the White. I believe this is Treebeard the Ent over here. And then a look at Frodo is on the other corner. Beautiful look to it, and the gold filigree is just incredibly impressive. You also get these little emblems here that call to mind little symbols from different parts of the movie. You have things like Gandalf's staff over here, the Horn of Gondor, or even one of my favorites over here, the barrel of Old Toby, the pipe tobacco that's a favorite of hobbits everywhere. So really impressive front to the tuck box, and continues on the side with these amazing statues. This is Isildur on one side and Elendil on the other. The pair were sort of mirrors of the legendary statues of them that stand at what was the northern border of Gondor, and they're memorialized for good reason. So the pair of them fought Sauron as part of the last alliance of elves and men, with Isildur on this side, Isildur finally striking Sauron down and cutting the ring from his hand. And for their heroic deeds, the pair are immortalized in these gigantic statues. And you can even see the moment in the movie when the Fellowship rides their way past these impressive monuments. You can see their boat down there at the bottom. But cool look to it, and honestly, the most impressive side to a tuck box that I've ever seen. Bottom here just has your ad copy for Theory11, also of course for New Line Productions of the movie. And then the top, this has Lord of the Rings, and the back is an embossed and foiled version of the back of the cards. We'll leave some of the detail for a moment, but for a little bit later, but you can see that brilliant green foil shining on there. And then it's held shut with the green and gold tuck seal here, has the classic Lord of the Rings name and the Eye of Sauron on the top. As you open it up, you get another really cool scene here, a look into Bag End and Hobbiton. This is the home of Frodo there. You recognize it with that green circular door, and underneath the sign, "No admittance except on party business." Of course, trying to keep hangers-on from interrupting him as he prepared for his party. And then, inner flaps here, you get the gold ring on one side, the one ring, and on the other side, the white tree of Gondor. This is the symbol that appears on the coat of arms of Gondor. So that's the exterior of the tuck box, and then the interior has some tree-based printing as well. Of course, again, an image of the tree of Gondor as well as other trees, kind of a forest pattern as you go down the entire length of the tuck box. That gold and black, just a great combo. And that finishes out what is, in my opinion, one of the best tuck boxes that Theory11's ever done. And that's really saying something. They absolutely killed it with this one. It's truly impressive. But we still have the cards to go. And we'll start off with the back design. The back design is, in a word, massive. Kevin Cantrell designs always feature back designs that are packed with details everywhere, and this one might be one of his craziest. Of course, at the center is the famed Ring of Power, the most powerful of rings that Sauron created, and the one that the Fellowship sets out to destroy. And you can see that beautiful flowing elvish script on it. And then the words around give at least a partial translation: one ring to rule them, one ring to find them. So kind of a cool, like I said, it's not all what the ring says, but kind of a cool touch on there. And then in the center, the glowing eye of Sauron. And then lots of little nods all the way around to different parts of the film. The small circles, for example, here show different scenes from different parts of the film. Honestly, I'm not sure what all of these are, but I do definitely recognize the door to Frodo's home there. So that's kind of the view from inside Bag End, looking out at the rest of Hobbiton, out that circular door. But cool look to it overall. And then on the sides of this regal framing here with all the bits of gold metallics, you get a pair of towers. So on one side, you have the Tower of Orthanc, where Saruman made his base. And then on the right is the tower at the fortress of Barad-dûr, which was Sauron's stronghold. And of course, at the top of that one, you'll see that glowing eye, one of the most enduring symbols from the movie. And then at the top, flanking the Tree of Gondor, you have two animals here. On one side, the Great Eagle, and then on the other side, the fell beast of the Nazgûl. The Nazgûl is another name for the ring wraiths, and so this dragon-like creature was the one that they rode kind of as their steed. But beautiful mixture of the bright, vivid, metallic gold inks against that dark green background. Just a beautiful back design of the cards. Some might call it busy, but I think it's fantastic and just so worth it to pour over the incredible amount of detail that went into this. But just the back design, so let's check out the faces of the cards. And we start out with the two Jokers. And the first Joker depicts the legendary Fellowship of the Ring, that gathering of hobbits, humans, elves, and dwarves who all came together to try to destroy the One Ring of Sauron. And so you'll see the entire gathering here kind of looks, I don't know, a little bit like a family tree with all the circles there. And in the center is the ring bearer himself, Frodo. Frodo Baggins was the one who was tasked with bringing the ring to be destroyed himself, but he was joined by all the different characters you see around him. So at the top you have the two human heroes, you have Aragorn and Boromir, and then underneath that, two of my favorites. This is Legolas the elf and Gimli the salty dwarf hero over here. I love the banter between the two of them. Through the whole movie, they love to poke fun at each other, and even do things like, I love when they keep track of their kill count right in the middle of battle, kind of shouting to each other. But anyway, moving down here, you have Gandalf on one side, and then the loyal friend Samwise Gamgee on the other. And then at the bottom, kind of the comic relief of the movie, this is Merry and Pippin, the last two hobbits, also dragged into this mess, but of course they became heroes in their own right. And of course, at the top, you again have that depiction of the great eagles. These eagles kind of served as like messengers and even spies to help defy the forces of Sauron. All right, now of course, if you're going to have a fellowship, you must have an enemy, and so we come to the armies of Mordor with the second Joker. These are the forces that set out to recover the ring, and at the center, of course, is Sauron himself, that spiked helmet, a dead giveaway to him. And then around him, you can see some of his many minions. The top here is Saruman the White. Saruman, in sort of his own hunger for power, ended up allying himself with Sauron as part of one of the major plots of the movie. And then over to the side, this is one of Sauron's spies in the kingdom of Rohan. His name is Grima. Fun fact about Grima from the movies, he actually shaved his eyebrows at Peter Jackson's request because the director kind of thought it would give an unconscious sense of discomfort to audiences whenever they saw him. But in any case, you also get a depiction of one of the orcs over here. The orcs kind of made up the main forces of Sauron's army, and so he had just hundreds, thousands, millions of orcs at his command. And then on the side, this one is one of the orc commanders over here on the right. This is Gothmog. Gothmog really played a super minor role in the books, but in the movies, his role was sort of expanded and he was one of the commanders of the orc. But then continuing down over here, we have the dreaded Witch King of Angmar, who is the leader of the Ring Wraiths, and a really interesting twisted character named the Mouth of Sauron over here. He was the Dark Lord's most devoted servant, working as his herald and messenger. You won't actually see him in the movies unless you go to the extended version, which, by the way, highly recommend it. There's like an hour of extra footage, so well worth your time. And then finally at the bottom, we have one of the Balrogs over here. This may well be Durin's Bane that fought against Gandalf yet again. And on the right over here is this gigantic spider who's known as Shelob. Shelob nearly captured Frodo before Frodo was actually saved by Sam in another one of the famous scenes from the movie. But great use of the gold metallics on this. All the banners really shine on this one. And at the top, the eagles have been replaced by those fell beasts once again. So the Nazgul rode on these fell beasts, these dragons, as their own conveyance. And so you can see the banners, and the Nazgul are coming. So great pair of Jokers, just really cool look into some of the characters. But it doesn't stop there. The last two extra cards kind of serve as a third and fourth Joker, if you will, and give you a look at even more of the prominent characters from the story. On the one card, you get, of course, Bilbo Baggins up there at the top. Down here, I believe this is Isildur and Elendil. We talked about them when we were going through the tuck box. Bottom here is one of the Ents. This is Treebeard, said to be the oldest creature in the entire world, or the oldest creature under the sun. And then a trio of elves here, which honestly, I'm not sure who any of them are. I will have to assume that one of them is Elrond, the Lord of Rivendell, just because he played such a prominent role in the movie, but not really sure who the other two are. So let me know who you think those might be. And then turning to the second card, a little bit darker feel to it as we go to some of the darker forces. You have one of the Ring Wraiths over here, those corrupted humans who are chasing after Frodo. Speaking of corrupted, there's Smeagol or Gollum up there at the top. And then another closer look at one of the fell beasts. They kind of have very grotesque mouths there. And down the bottom, here's another one, memorable one. This is one of the cave trolls, the one that they fought in the mines of Moria. So great extra pair of cards. Love the Middle-earth volcano here, the smoke of Mount Doom up there at the top. Just a nice extra little touch. So great quartet of extra cards that you get in this one. And the aces as well just kind of continue the artwork. Just really impressive in their own right. Aces feature these gigantic oversized pips, and each one of them, the black and the red, is almost completely covered with gold to depict some of the more legendary scenes from the movie. And the pip and the index in the corner, while fairly simple in comparison, does feature a really nice font usage on the index there in the corner, kind of an elvish inspired font. The first ace, the Ace of Spades, is definitely the power ace of the four, and it features a really beautiful panoramic scene of Gondor. It's a fantastic view with Gandalf right in the foreground, the staff raised above his head. And everything in this is just amazing, from the detail of the buildings to the prominent cliff that's jutting out to even the white tree of Gondor up there on the top. And at the base of the pip, you can see the most famous sword in the realm. This is Anduril. Anduril was actually reforged from the shards of the blade that was used to cut the ring from Sauron's hand, and it became Aragorn's sword in the book, or in the movie. So beautiful look to this one. The next one, the Ace of Diamonds, also features some beautiful artwork, and I love in particular the scroll work around the edge of this one. Now, I'm not 100% sure on this one, but I believe this is one of the buildings from Rivendell, the Elf Kingdom. I could be wrong on that one, but the architecture definitely looks Rivendell-ish. And you even have the crossed horses' heads here at the top, another kind of hint that it may be one of the elf lands, but another cool look to that one. And then Ace of Clubs pays tribute to the 3 rings that were given to the elves. And so each one of the leaves of the clover depicts one of the 3 rings, and in the center has a scene from one of the elfish kingdoms. And of course, 3 for the elves in the center. And then the final one, the Ace of Hearts. This is probably my favorite one This one has, takes us back to a more peaceful time. This is the look at Hobbiton and of course Bag End in the back. Frodo's home with the classic circular door, and even has that moment where Gandalf's riding up in his wagon full of like fireworks and other goodies to share with the hobbits. So it kind of brings you back to a more peaceful time before the entire events of the Fellowship really kind of took over. So great artwork on the aces. And next up are the number cards. And if you've seen Cantrell decks before, you know he doesn't leave these for standard either. Every single pip features a small but super detailed illustration, all done in that gold metallic ink, as well as some embellishments, some small emblems to fill in some of the empty space. And of course, these aren't just simple filigree. Each one of the symbols carries its own special significance. So the spades, for example, showcase something we've seen a few other times before, that white tree of Gondor that appears on the coat of arms of Gondor. But yeah, really well done. Smaller pips, and I do like how those extra little elements kind of fill in the space. It really kind of gives an interesting shape to everything. But then going to the diamonds, this is an interesting one. This is what I believe is a depiction of something called the Smibeline. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, but it's a type of flower, a white flower that was said to grow particularly on the burial sites of men. And so a significant flower in the realm, and I think that may be what's depicted here on the diamonds. Then turning to the clubs, this one is another nod, just like we saw in the Ace of Clubs, the 3 rings, so the 3 circles on the 3 leaves that symbolize the 3 rings given to elves. And I love the use of the famous leaves of Lorien there in the center. Those green leaves, you may remember when they were kind of used as clasps for the cloaks of the members of the Fellowship. But a really memorable little shape there as well. And then finally getting into the hearts, and we have Bilbo's door once again, the look at Bag End as the final pip shape. And in the center here, little gold elements. These are those barrels of pipe tobacco that the hobbits love so much. So that is your pips, really beautifully done. And at last we arrive at the courts. Now I'll say to start, I've heard a little bit of negativity about some of the artwork in the courts. Some people don't love it. Personally, I think it's fantastic. It's a blend of inspirations from the classic style courts, and you can kind of see that in the clothing there. But I think it's blended amazingly well with the memorable details from the characters they reflect. And each one kind of brings in small bits that bring that character to life. So while I don't have enough time to go into everything for each card, let's do a little bit of a dive and maybe you'll appreciate what I do. So starting off, of course, is Frodo on the Jack of Clubs. The ring bearer himself is illustrated with Kevin Cantrell's classic ultra-thin line work. And the familiar touches are everywhere, from his pointed ears to the sword's sting raised at his side, the orc killer, and you can even see how he's fingering the one ring that's tied around his neck. So great look to it, and that kind of determined look on his face. I think it's a fantastic card. And like I said, that blend of classic styles with the newer artwork, I think just really works quite well. And then the next couple of these are, remember these guys, this is Merry and Pippin, 2 of Frodo's closest companions throughout the story. So this is Peregrine Took and Meriadoc Brandybuck, who went by Pippin and Merry. And now to be honest, I may kind of have reversed the two, but the apple in hand here, I think makes me think that this one is Pippin. Kind of calls to mind the scene where he introduced the world to second breakfast. But I may have reversed the two. And then finally, the last of the Jacks is the final Hobbit companion. This is none other than Samwise Gamgee. Sam is the most loyal of all of Frodo's friends. He started out as a simple gardener, the spade in his hand kind of a tribute to that, but he ended up being one of the bravest and most loyal of all of the companions. So that's the final one of the Jacks, and I love that spade kind of symbolizing his humble roots. So moving to the Queens, we stay with Sam's family as we look at his wife. This is Rose Cotton. She and Sam married each other after the War of the Ring and went on to raise 13 children together. So while she's definitely the most obscure character that was selected as a court, I've got to say her face was one of the most recognizable of the entire bunch of my eyes. That smile on her face, just instantly recognizable for me. So I personally think this still serves as a great court card, even if it's one of the more obscure ones. Next is one of the really memorable female characters in the book. This is Arwen. She was a half-elf who, at the age of over 2,700 years old, sacrificed her own immortality to live a human life as Aragorn's companion. She has her sword, Halhafrang, I think they already say that, raised up at her side, that beautiful curved single-edged sword. Another really cool one. And then next up, this is another one I had to do a little bit of digging. This is an interesting choice. This is Eowyn, the Shield Maiden of Rohan. She actually ended up disguising herself as a man to fight at Minas Tirith in the movie, and had her finest moment when she challenged and killed the Witch King of Angmar. So there were prophecies that had declared that the Witch King couldn't be killed by any man. But of course, Eowyn, as a woman, was able to defy that prophecy and succeed where others had failed. And then finally is the beautiful Galadriel, ruler of the Elven Kingdom of Lothlorien. And the file of Galadriel that she holds was actually given as a gift to Frodo to help him light his way through dark places, so that file could glow with a super bright light. So that finishes out the queens, and then we come to the kings. These represent some of those powerful and legendary leaders from the movies. So first up is who I believe to be Theoden, the king of Rohan. While he didn't believe personally the humans would be able to stop Sauron, he still wished to die with honor in the fight, and so he and his men fought believing full well that they were going to die for the cause. But I love the depiction of the helmet on this one. The sword proudly raised at his side. Definitely has that look of grim determination in his eyes. And then, of course, the next two, I've talked about these two, but Legolas and Gimli make up the King of Clubs and Hearts, respectively. And I love the depiction. So, of course, Legolas was a legendary archer. He produced some of the most fantastic action scenes in the entire movie as he sort of spun around the battlefield and used his bow as just such an effective weapon. And then Gimli, by extension, almost seemed brutish, but was an incredibly fierce warrior with his axe there at his side. So there's Legolas and Gimli. And then we come to the final two, or the final court rather. This is, of course, Aragorn. Aragorn, the king. When you say the return of the king, of course we're talking about Aragorn. He was the heir of Isildur and took up the fight against Sauron, becoming the king of Gondor in the process. And of course, there's his legendary sword, Anduril, the Flame of the West, raised at his side. So cool look to this one. And again, those kind of gold accents just really set these cards off. And at long last, we've come to the end. That is the deck. Beautiful touches throughout, so many different Easter eggs to pick up on here. Just a ton to really get into with this deck. I think fantastic job on this one overall. Now, as far as handling, these are done on USPCC stock. So if you felt their decks before, you know kind of what to expect. They handle really nicely, and those metallics really shine if you want to use this for cardistry or something like that. But for me, I think this is just a fun gameplay deck. You know, one of the great things about Theory11 decks is they're super approachable. These are, I think, $13 as a deck, so not too expensive, but for the level of luxury you get, truly something impressive. So definitely a deck you won't want to miss. If you're a fan of Lord of the Rings or just a fan of beautiful decks in general, I can't recommend this one highly enough. So love it. Great job on this one, and hope you guys get a chance to check this one out for yourself. But anyway, that's it for now. Hope you enjoyed this dive into the Lord of the Rings by Theory11 and Kevin Cantrell. That's it for now. Hope you enjoyed. Make sure to subscribe for more deck reviews, more unboxings. Let me know what else you want to see, and I'll see you for the next one.